You've had access to something you shouldn't have. A document left open on someone's screen, a password that wasn't yours, information you were supposed to ignore. Alan Pace had that access, every single day, for months, and unlike you, he didn't look away. Alan Pace was the best employee Dunbar Armored had ever hired, punctual, dedicated, awarded 3 times for outstanding performance. In 1997, the company promoted him to Regional Security Supervisor. It was the greatest mistake they ever made. $9 million, one Friday night, 0 alarms, 0 shots fired, 0 blood. There was one detail in his plan so obvious, so visible that nobody in the company ever saw it. I'm going to show you exactly what it was. And the most surprising part wasn't the robbery itself. It was what brought everything crashing down 3 weeks later. It wasn't the FBI. It wasn't technology. It was something you do every single day without thinking. 1997, Los Angeles. Dunbar Armored was the most active armored transport company on the West Coast. Vaults, cameras, alarms, protocols, decades of security infrastructure built layer by layer. And at the top of that protection pyramid, Alan Pace, the man hired to find every flaw, every gap, every vulnerable inch of the entire system. He was exceptional at his job, maybe too exceptional. For months, Pace conducted real audits. Legitimate, documented, every camera cataloged, every patrol route timed to the second, every blind spot photographed. And there was one point, one single point with no camera coverage. A rear entrance, a vulnerability documented in previous reports. Never fixed. Pace knew why, because he was the one responsible for fixing it. Think about that for a moment. The company paid him to find the problem. He found it, and chose to keep it for himself. The plan had 3 pillars, and each one was smarter than the last. First, the timing Fridays, the day the trucks arrived carrying the highest cash volume of the week. Pace knew the exact arrival schedules. He knew the automatic system check window. He knew precisely how long he had before any alarm would trigger. 30 minutes, he didn't need more. Second, the blind spot, the rear entrance with no camera. The same point Pace had flagged in a real audit 6 months earlier. The camera that was supposed to be installed there never was, because nobody checked whether the auditor's recommendations were actually implemented. Nobody audited the auditor. Third, the men, and this is the smartest move in the entire plan. Pace didn't go looking for experienced criminals. He didn't reach out to the Los Angeles underworld. He didn't recruit anyone with a prior record. He went to Memphis, his hometown, and recruited 5 childhood friends. Regular people, no criminal history, no ties to Los Angeles. To the FBI, they were completely invisible. He didn't choose the most dangerous men. He chose the cleanest ones. They got in without triggering a single alarm. They walked out with nearly $19 million. But they made one mistake. A mistake so ordinary, so human, so absurd, that I need a moment before I reveal it. Because it's the same mistake that destroys every perfect crime in history. The human factor. It's always the variable that breaks the equation. It wasn't a technical failure that brought Alan Pace down. It wasn't a camera he missed. It wasn't an alarm he forgot to disable. It was something no plan can ever audit. What happens after? When the money is in your hands, when the danger has passed, when the adrenaline fades and all that's left is silence. What do you do with a secret worth $18 million? Pace believed he knew the answer. One of his friends disagreed. Friday night, Los Angeles. The van has been parked 2 blocks from the facility for 40 minutes. 6 men, hoods, zip ties, and a map that Alan Pace had memorized better than his own home address. They enter through the blind spot, exactly where Pace had marked it in his report. No hesitation, no improvisation. The employees are subdued within seconds. Zip ties, hoods over their faces, no violence. Pace had calculated that too. Violence creates active witnesses. Silence creates passive victims, and passive victims remember less. They knew where every vault was, every box, every cash batch of the week. They didn't go for the main vault. They went straight for the Friday loads and the highest volume. Surgical precision, that's what happens when you've spent months auditing the exact place you're about to rob. The clock moves. 10 minutes, 15, 20. In 22 minutes, $18.9 million in cash were inside the bags. No alarm, no gunshot, no blood. The van pulled away into the rain. The facility faded in the rearview mirror. The security cameras kept turning toward all the right angles. The largest cash robbery in American history was over, and nobody knew. Not yet. Memphis, Tennessee. 6 men came home. 6 men who were nobody the week before, and suddenly had new cars, new houses, unexplained cash. In Memphis, a small city where everybody knows everybody. Here's what Pace never audited. Vanity. You can plan the perfect entry. You can map every camera, every patrol route, every blind spot. You can recruit the right people. You can execute with military precision. But you cannot plan for what happens when an ordinary man suddenly has more money than he'll ever be able to explain for the rest of his life. Eugene Hill couldn't hold it. It wasn't FBI pressure. It wasn't moral guilt. It wasn't a crisis of conscience. It was vanity. He told a friend, that friend told another. Within months, the FBI had an informant with a name, an address, and enough details to open a federal case. The most sophisticated insider crime in American history was taken down by a bar conversation. 1998. The FBI knocks on Alan Pace's door. The man who had spent years teaching companies how to protect their assets couldn't protect his own secret. Alan Pace was convicted in the year 2000, 24 years in federal prison. The money, most of it was never recovered. Over $10 million remain missing to this day. The FBI still has the case open. The system that failed wasn't the vault. It was the premise. Dunbar built a fortress, installed cameras, created protocols, hired specialists, did everything right, and handed the keys to the right man inside the wrong assumption that insiders don't represent a threat. Pace didn't exploit a technical gap. He exploited a belief. And beliefs are the hardest vulnerability to audit. Alan Pace wasn't a movie criminal. He was a competent professional who understood something most organizations still refuse to accept. The insider with full access is the most lethal threat to any system. Not because he's inherently dangerous, but because nobody is watching him. Think about how many people around you have access to things that could bring everything down, and think about how many of them you'll never audit, because you trust them. Just like Dunbar trusted Alan Pace. There is no perfect crime. There is only the crime that hasn't been given away yet, by the wrong mouth. Alan Pace planned everything, calculated everything, audited everything, except the human being standing next to him. Sleep well, if you can.